And I just encourage people to learn about themselves, know about themselves, what they want for their lives, short-term and long-term, and then make their decisions about SSI or SSDI from there.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to use them.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another transparent episode of the See-Through Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Johnson, and I am slowly losing my vision to retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. And speaking of RP, my two guests today have it. My two guests today is Bennardo and Michael Tubiak. In today's episode, we talk about SSI and SSDI benefits. We talk about the pros and cons of both, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what we'd like to see in the benefits, and what we think are flaws with these types of benefits. It's truly a educational but yet entertaining and interesting conversation that I think this community is looking to have. But first, make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you're following the podcast on social media. My handle is at See-Through Pod, and if you want bonus and exclusive See-Through Podcast material, go join my Patreon account. The link is in the show description. Oh yeah, one more thing. None of us are experts on this. You may have to fact check what we talk about in this episode, so take what we say with a grain of salt. All right, we got Bennardo, we got Michael Tubiak from the RP show. Welcome to the See-Through Podcast.
Great to be here.
Yep, ditto. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you both. I brought you both on specifically because you guys bring two very specific perspectives on the topic we're talking about today, and that is SSDI and SSI, otherwise known as, disability from the government, that money from the government.
The cheddar.
The cheddar. It's like the new government cheese, And the reason I wanted to talk about this topic was, we have a group chat, with a bunch of friends of ours with RP, and then, Eric, you texted the group and you were like something about SSI, and I was like, to be honest, I read it and I was like, I don't even know anything about that. And then Mike, you responded with your perspective on it, which we're going to get into in this episode. And then I realized I didn't know even more about it. So I was like, and I know my mom's on it, she is on SSDI currently, but I never really thought too much about it because I currently just, I work because I'm not legally blind. So it's not really on my radar right now, but I want to learn about it. I want to understand it.
Right.
And, so I had the idea. I was like, I'll bring you both on. We'll talk about it because I think a lot of people listening probably want to learn about it and what qualifies you for it. What's the difference between SSI and SSDI? Before we start a conversation, I think it'd be helpful if you guys gave each a quick intro, just to kind of tell everyone a little bit about yourself and maybe include like your current employment status, or if you are claiming disability or whatever.
Mike Tubiak here, Tubiak Maniac, as many people call me. My current employment status would be, I said, Social Security, disability mostly, and I am on the workforce a little bit. I do teach a spin class at the local YMCA here in town. And I do that 3 hours a week because it's an hour long class. Actually, I'm probably about an hour and a half between everything. So so that was basically my employment situation. And then like I said, like Lance said, I'm from the RP show, and this is how I met Lance and how how we're all here right now. So talking about this.
For sure. Yeah. And we'll go into more details about your specific details of what you claim and your transition from working.
Yep. Cause I did work. Yeah, I did. Yep. I had, worked for 10 years. So before, going on SSDI.
Yeah. So Eric, let's hear a little bit about you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Bennardo. I'm 29 years old. I have retinitis pigmentosa, like my two co-hosts here, and I'm the president of the Foundation Fighting Blindness Pittsburgh chapter. And as far as work goes, I'm currently working as a recruitment consultant for a company called Ignite Recruitment, and I specialize in the headhunting and placement of professionals in the aerospace engineering industry, as well as the cloud engineering space as well.
Nice. Yeah, those are like very specific,
I'd like to add I'm a
fields.
stay-at-home dad. That's my position.
That's awesome.
That's my work title is a stay-at-home dad. Yeah, that's
important
what I
job.
tell people.
Yeah. And Mike, you have one son, right? And what's his age?
He's 10 years old. Evan.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll just go off of that. So you have one son, Evan.
Yeah.
He's 10. At what age, have you been a stay-at-home dad through his entire life, or tell me a little bit about that?
No, I was, like I said, working at my last job as a graphic artist, and I was there for, like I said, 10 years. And about 2015 was when I decided, hey, I'm going to hang up the keys for my birthday at the end of the year. So that was going to affect me getting to work. I did have rides. I could make it in if I, really chose to. And then it went to, I was going to try to work from home, and they wouldn't let me. They were like, well, if we let you work from home, we could just outsource your job. So basically, I was given the option to either stay with the company. They would try to make things a little more safer for me. And we could find people there was a few people that lived in, my neck of the woods that would be able to drive me into work. And that was kind of that. Or they could basically let me go so that I could collect unemployment, while I, kind of switch things over. So I talked to my wife, and that was, we decided that that was really crappy with the, kind of how it went down, and she wasn't happy with it, and I wasn't happy with it, especially since I was there for like 10 years. So I decided it was a good time to, to leave. So at basically just a couple of days before I turned 35, that's when I left that company, and I stopped driving about 3 days later. And then I wasn't initially going to collect unemployment because I was like, I didn't know if you could collect unemployment while you're also applying for disability income. So I was like, I think I waited like a month or so. I think a month. Yeah, I think I applied like end of January. So end of January came, and I was like, you know what, frig this. Like, we need money, and I'm just gonna apply. I'm just gonna do it So I applied for unemployment. I got unemployment. So which worked out perfectly because Social Security disability income takes, the application's nuts. It takes forever. It's a long application, and it takes about 6 months usually before you actually receive your benefits. You will get back pay from it. So I was like, when that kicked in, when my benefits kicked in was when my unemployment was just about to run out. Like, so they worked out perfectly. I had one more month of unemployment, at when I was going to start collecting my disability. So, but getting back to really your original question is, I've been a stay-at-home dad since my son was like 3.5. Yeah, about 3.5. Okay,
yeah. So, all right. So you entered a workforce at what age again?
I've been working, since I was, I started working at McDonald's when I was like 16. That was my first job. So I've been pretty much in the workforce, pretty much most of that time.
So 16, and then what year did you become a graphic designer?
That job I started in November of 2005.
And then you worked there till, 2015. So
December
10 years.
15, yep.
And then what year was your son born?
He was born in 2012, May 25th.
Okay, so he was 3 years old when you quit your job to get on unemployment.
Yeah, a little more than about 3, yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm just trying to, build a timeline out for people listening.
Oh, absolutely.
Before I move over to Eric, I want to add to that because because, you know, when working a salary job, you were working salary, right? At your last job?
I was an hourly employee.
You were hourly
But
employee. But
Yep.
on that job, you had benefits with health insurance.
Oh yeah, I had 401k. I had life insurance. I was an adult.
Okay, so when quitting and being on disability, which you're on SSDI, right?
Right.
Which we'll get into the difference between SSDI and SSI here shortly. But you were on SSDI.
Yeah.
When it came to making that transition, what financially was a better situation for you?
Oh, way better collecting, because when you have both of us working, my wife and I working full-time jobs, obviously you got to pay for daycare. Daycare alone is over $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Especially depending on the age of the kid. I mean, right now it's probably even more, way more than $1,000 a month. This is going back, 10 years. So when you think about that alone, that's a job. I mean, that itself is that to pay for daycare is like having another job just to pay for that almost. Mm-hmm. So we lucked out, and we had one of my coworkers, she used to watch our son. And even then we were still paying like $500 something a month.
Yeah.
And that's just to have somebody that you trust and watch them. But like I said, an average person will not do that. Average person's probably going to have, they're going to drop their kid off at a daycare. That's where my wife was working. So I know all about the daycare industry because my wife worked there for over 10 years. So it's a lot of money there. So you factor that in. So now I saved that. Now I'm a stay-at-home dad. So that's $500 something that we were paying at the time. I don't have to pay anymore.
Yeah.
Then you factor in other things like a second car, insurance, all these other things, like gas for that car. Now we're not paying that. I was paying, it was me, I had my wife on our insurance, and I had my son. I was the one, it was my medical insurance we were using. And I literally was losing probably, I think I paid almost $1,000 a month or something to have them to just taken out of my paycheck. It was like I think it was like $4 something every paycheck was being taken out. And it was expensive. So now you factor in all that. And now being on Medicare, like it's only like $100 something or $200 something gets taken out of my, I forgot how much it is.
And I want to clarify, when you go on SSDI, then you qualify for Medicare
After 2 years.
So after 2 years,
they automatically put you on it after 2 years.
And what is Medicare? It's just like it's just health insurance, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
So So what you're basically
stuff.
saying, just to summarize, to make sure we're all on the same page, is daycare with a car, with healthcare.
Yep.
When you do the math, it was more going out than what's coming in with SSDI.
Oh, and Evan collects half of me. Evan can collect half of whatever I make.
So is that the standard rule?
Oh, and
is that the standard rule?
Yeah.
So
if every kid, I think it's each kid can collect up to, I don't know if it lowers per, like, say you had 2 kids. I don't know if it's still like, if they get less per kid or if it's like they each can collect half.
Yeah.
I don't really know that, but I know Evan can collect, half of that. So between his and mine, there was before my wife was working where she's working now, when she was in daycare, I was making more money than her a month.
Okay.
So I was still the breadwinner on SSDI with my son.
Okay. Yeah, it's just it's just weighing the pros and cons, and I know there's everybody has their own specific situation that's going to benefit them.
Oh, and
more.
I'm in Connecticut. Taxes are super high in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the other issue too. So it really it depends on where you're also living.
Yeah. So to move to a different perspective, I'd like to hear Eric's side of
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. So would you like me to just talk about where I started on my journey with SSI and then kind of go from there?
Yeah, because we know you're working now. You talked about your job as a job recruiter, and so you're a part of the workforce. You work hard, but I do know that you at one point were on SSI, which is different than SSDI. Yeah. So maybe you start there, so that way we can establish a difference between those two, and then we can move from there.
Yeah, Mike gave a really great backstory, into his story about how he got on it, how he got started, and how it's worked for him. So I'll follow I'll follow suit there. So I'm going to go back to when I started my, I guess, relationship with SSI, and it was back in 2010 when I was ending my junior year of high school, and my mom and I met with the guidance counselor at the school that I went to. I went to a small Catholic school, high school, and all of us had to go meet with the guidance counselor. And my mom asked, he has this condition. He can't see very well. He's losing his sight. Are there any resources to help him pay for school? And she's like, oh, well, he needs to talk to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation for the state of Pennsylvania. And every state in the country has an Office of Vocational Rehab, and it's called probably different things in different states. But what they do is they essentially provide services to assist people with various types of physical and psychological conditions in acquiring resources, both financially and otherwise, to help better their lives. And we contacted the state. This was in 2010. And I met with my case manager. And I had never heard of SSI, by the way, up until this point, never heard of it. And we were meeting with the case manager at the house, and she said, yeah, we can pay for a certain percentage of your tuition at Penn State. At that point, I had applied to Penn State. I'd been accepted to Penn State. She's like, we will pay a certain percentage of your tuition. That's what we do. However, if you apply for SSI and qualify for SSI, we can pay a higher percentage of your tuition. So that's why I decided to go on to SSI. I never went on to SSI with the intention of staying on it. I went on SSI as a tool so that the state would pay for a higher amount of my college tuition.
Yeah. So you're 18, right? You're looking to go into university, Penn State.
Right.
And then basically you get the advice with, RP being legally blind, you could qualify for SSI, and that's going to make us Penn State's going to give you more of a cut off of your tuition.
Well, the state will cover more of
the state.
Yeah.
So you took them up on it. You signed up for SSI.
Correct.
And then you go through university. So what's next?
Yeah. So I qualified for SSI, and at the time, SSI was in Pennsylvania was $450 or so a month. Okay, that's what the amount was. And here's here's the key difference between SSI and SSDI. SSI is a flat rate for people. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
They don't factor in earnings, because SSI is geared more towards people who have actually never worked in the workforce, versus SSDI, which is geared towards assisting people financially once they can no longer work. So that's a big difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So SSI qualifications would be more like you're born with a disability that's going to make it pretty difficult for you to work. So SSI might be more fitting, for someone who, for whatever reason, couldn't have a career. Yeah,
couldn't have a career. That's a really great way to put it. Yeah, and we can maybe get in touch on some of that stuff, later on in the show. But so I qualified for SSI. I went through college. They paid for my college, and so I graduated from Penn State debt-free, no debt, graduating from Penn State with a bachelor's in communications. And then it was off to the job hunt, to look for my first job out of school. And unlike Mike, I did not join the workforce when I turned 16. I actually didn't join the workforce until I was 24, when I found my first job after college. I looked for a job for 18 months after I graduated college. There are a lot of reasons why it took that long to find one: lack of actual work experience, lack of industry experience, lack of a driver's license was quite a barrier, because I had never driven, so that was definitely a barrier to employment. And so it was a long job search. And then I finally found my first job as a career counselor for a nonprofit local to me, about 20 minutes down the road from me, which was great. And I had rides from my parents and coworkers to and from work, and it was really, really great. And as soon as I got my job, which I was ecstatic about, I decided, well, you have to not be on SSI if you're working, especially if you're working full time, making, $15 or $16 an hour, which is what I was making.
Yeah, I guess that's a key thing that I should just throw in there just in case it's not understood. You can't be on SSDI or SSI if you are employed?
Well, there are a lot of nuances that go into that.
Well, SSDI,
Yeah, you can, but it's
I don't know about
and it's not
SSI,
like I'm not a I don't know all the red tape and things like that, but there would be deductions from your benefits, your government benefits.
Oh, so it's the same. So yeah, the same.
so
Yeah, with me. If I depending on how much I make, like there's a barrier, there's a limit, and then after that limit, they were going to take out. Yeah.
So yeah, to make sure that this is clear, you can work. It sounds like with SSDI, but it's going to take away. Or like how does that work? So let's say, Mike, you're on SSDI right now, but you get a job offer and you start working. Are you still going to be able to get the same amount? Is that like a bonus income, or like how does that change?
No, it'd be there. Like I said, there's a usually. I don't know the exact number, but I know if I make X amount of money, and once I reach that cap, once I go over that cap, I think it's every $2 I go over, $1 is subtracted from what my earnings.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a
so I don't know if like
seesaws out, like balances out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but then also I lose. If I make more than $850 a month, I lose my Medicare. So now I would have to.
So there we go.
If I was going to take a job, I'd have to factor in. Okay, how much money is it going to cost to be on their insurance? Or I would probably, in the case of what I'm doing right now, because I'm currently applying for something, if I get this, then yeah, I'm going to have to go on to my wife's insurance.
So I'll say just to simplify it, I know there's a lot of nuance, like Eric said, $850 a month or more, basically your benefits kind of get, taken away.
Right, you're gonna lose a lot. Yeah. Once you start getting more, you're gonna lose insurance. You're gonna lose probably.
Would that be the same? Would you agree with that, Eric?
Well, yeah, and I can't answer it quite the same way that Mike did, because my intention was to never stay on SSI or to work while I was on SSI. It was, like I mentioned, it was exclusively a tool to get me through college debt free. So that never really was something I ever even had to learn, how working would affect it. It was basically graduate from college, debt free, get into the workforce as soon as possible, make the call, get off the program, and get on with my career. And I do kind of want to go back. I did fail to mention that Mike is on Medicare. I was on Medicaid when I was on SSI.
Yeah.
That's right. So I qualified for Medicaid when I was on SSI.
So just like there's a distinction between SSI and SSDI, there's also a clear distinction and difference of Medicare and Medicaid.
Right.
And SSI is Medicaid, right?
Right. Which is a state.
And SSDI is Medicare. Yeah. And I don't want to, basically to simplify that, even from what I know about it, is Medicare is a lot better in terms of the benefits.
By Medicaid.
Well, coverage. Right. Yeah, you could more as far as I know, and I'm not a medical, insurance expert, but from what I understand, Medicare is accepted more widely by more providers.
I think doctors don't have to cover Medicaid, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Like it's not a requirement.
Right.
And I may be wrong.
No,
a lot of stuff we have to fact check, but.
Oh, and the other factor also, by the way, is since going on to SSDI, Evan qualifies he's on Husky. He's on Husky A, whatever. He's on the best version of Husky. So that's another
what's Husky?
I didn't have to, Husky's that's state insurance.
Yeah.
State medical insurance, basically. I don't know. Every state might be down.
Yeah.
I don't know Huskies.
You know what?
Every state. I just know. Yeah.
It's funny, just even like as a host trying to do this conversation, it's like, it's just proof of how like convoluted and complicated it kind of is confusing. Like, cause I'm like, all right, let's clarify. And then you're talking about Connecticut, you're talking about Pennsylvania and then my mom's in North Carolina, so it's like for what I know about her experience is like, the North Carolina, whatever, they have going on. So it's like, I guess like it can be a confusing topic. And I think that's why I wanted, this makes me happier that we are talking about it, because it's just kind of, there's a lot of factors in it. And again, I'm going to drive home before I let Eric finish his story, is that each person has their own specific scenario. And that has to deal with basically they have a spouse, kid, their current work situation, the state they're in, And so there's a lot to factor in, but yeah.
Yeah, and your benefits don't. And if I were to move, say to where your mom is, my benefits would still be the same. My benefits don't come from North Carolina, so like if I move, I'm still, it's not like I would get paid less. So I can go move somewhere that has a lower, cost of living, and probably benefit a little bit more off of what I'm making from SSDI.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have to be tactful. You have to really analyze and know what's best for you. But yeah, Eric, let's continue on with your story.
Yeah, before I do that real quick, I just want to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, Lance, about people having their own specific scenarios and reasons for going onto these programs and coming off of them. And I do want to make that clear also. Like we're talking about our own personal experiences, how are given programs, me of SSI and him of SSDI, and how they have worked or not worked for us. And it's up to every individual to decide what works for them in their own situation. We are not here.
For sure.
I'm not here, Mike, Lance, we're not here to tell people what they should or should not do. We are just talking about our own personal experience.
Yeah.
And we're laying the information out there. We're just laying this information out here.
Because I just want to know about it for myself, because in my lifetime, I'll probably have to come to a decision around this. So I might as well pull my head out the sand and learn about it, So let's.
It's good to know. It's definitely good stuff to know, and not learn on the fly like I did.
Sure. And it sounds like, Eric, you learned about it on the fly. It sounds like a lot of people learn about it whenever they're put in that situation.
That's it. Yeah. We just learned on the fly. It's like,
yeah. So maybe this episode will help. Well, one, it'll help me, but maybe it'll help people listening who don't quite know about it. Maybe they'll be able to start wrapping their minds around it.
The day I learned about it, I said to you guys, I didn't know about it the day when I woke up that day. And then when I went to bed that day, I knew about it, it just came out of nowhere, but,
how long is that application, Eric? Was that as long as I'm curious how long? I've never had somewhere.
I don't even really remember.
Because SSDI is insane. They want to know everything about you. They want to know why you're disabled. They want to know, is there a possibility? They want to know what you do every day. They actually want to know your daily routine. There's so many things that they wanted me to know. Like it was wild.
It was 12 years ago. It was a very, very long time ago. I don't remember. I was actually still a minor. So I think my parents had more of a hand in filling that out.
Probably. Okay.
But
I'll add to that though, Mike. My mom, when she applied for it after she retired, she had to get basically sign off from a doctor, and most.
Oh yeah, they'll send you. They'll send you to a doctor.
In order to get disability, some disabilities aren't degenerative, like RP is degenerative, it gets worse. But some disabilities, they require you, if you're on disability, they require you to prove that you're disabled, frequently, so.
Oh yeah. Cause right.
Let's say you hurt your back or something at work, if you go through surgery, fix it, and then you're back into work, if you're healthy, you probably get back into work.
Yeah.
But it's like, with something like RP, I remember my mom shared this story with me that the doctor kind of chuckled because he's like, well, your eyes are not going to get better. So she's set up in a sense she doesn't have to constantly reaffirm it, but in some instances you will have to reaffirm that you are still disabled. So I just want to.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was diagnosed at 14, 20 years later, man. I had applying for SSDI. I had to go to their doc. I got sent to their doctor because I was told I supposedly had RP, and they needed to confirm, to make sure that I wasn't some crook trying to collect SSDI.
Yeah.
So I went to a guy, and the guy was like, you failed this test. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
I knew I would.
And we laugh at it, right? We're kind of like, oh, it's kind of phony. But the sad truth is people take advantage of it. And that's why
the guy did say that there are people.
Yeah, that's why there are these protocols in there. Yeah. So
I asked him, I go, does somebody fake? Who wants to fake being, going blind? And he did tell me a story that I guess it was more of like a mental thing that they thought they were going blind. They believed they were going blind. They weren't, but they actually believed it so much that they would just go with it. And I guess to cure this person, they gave him like magic drops or gave something to really actually basically convince,
that's interesting. That is a new thing. And I definitely don't want to go in depth on it, but it's called being it's called being transabled. That's like a new thing where you identify as being disabled. Like some people even go as far as to like self mutilation, like they'll like cut off their leg because, you know, or like one lady literally put like a kitchen cleaner in her eyes and made herself go blind because she wanted to be a blind person.
He was on Dr. Phil. I saw that on Dr. Phil.
Yeah. It's
wow.
So, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So that's, but it is fascinating.
Yes. But they exist.
Yeah.
So they exist.
But,
yeah.
Eric, keep going.
Yeah. Well, so you guys are talking about some of the red tape and doctors verifications and stuff like that. Yeah. I had a similar experience for SSI, as you can imagine. You know, I had to take a visual field test. I had to get something from my ophthalmologist, probably from my optometrist too, maybe even my, you know, personal care physician, excuse me, just to prove that I wasn't trying to scam the government out of, you know, $400 a month, you know, and it was $450 when I got on, I'm pretty sure. And then by the time I got off of it 6 years later, it was $700. So fast forward to when I got my first job offer at the human services place as a career counselor. And I was like, well, I can get off of SSI, get off of Medicaid and join the workforce, called my case manager or called the state rather, contacted the state, got off it. And really have never looked back ever since, you know? And
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And I don't work as a career counselor for a nonprofit anymore. I work for a pretty hardcore, you know, staffing firm and things are going pretty well with that. But that's kind of my journey as far as being in that system, you know, and it served its end, you know, it served its purpose for me. I have my things that the biggest benefit was having my Penn State degree paid for, which is huge. And of course having some cash.
See, you used it what it was meant for. Yeah. You were using your SSI for what it was actually like most people designed for. That's what I always felt bad when I was on SSDI. And my friend would always tell me that. My friend said, dude, like you're actually using SSDI for like what it's actually meant for. Like it was created for people like you. Like you're not robbing the system. You're not like somebody cheating the system. I'm like, and so I always had to remind myself that you know, that I'm not like, you know, it's okay.
I want to talk about that later on where it's like this kind of the stigmas around, you know, it. But I guess, Eric, my next question would be, have you been like in Mike's situation, he almost in a way like was rewarded for going on SSDI because it made him better off financially and saved him money on daycare and health insurance. In any ways, when you got off of SSI, was there any punishment, you know, to getting to joining the workforce? Are you missing out on anything, or is it just the overall better decision to be in the workforce?
Well, I love the way you asked that question. You put two parts to it. And I will say it was an all-round better decision to join the workforce. Yeah, It was all around. Now, of course, it's also, some of these things are subjective. Like I had Medicaid, which I didn't have no co-pays, no premiums, nothing like that. Granted, there was restricted. It was restricted on kind of like which providers would provide care to someone on Medicaid. However, it was that was like the biggest thing that I lost, I guess, sort of that saved expense. I wasn't really missing the $700 a month that I stopped getting because I was making far more than that in the workforce. And, you know, $700 a month just wasn't, you can't live.
That's not livable for anyone, really.
I know people whose groceries are $700 a month, you know, let alone rent and utilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was definitely not a thing that I missed. And I would say the biggest benefit, especially because of where I am now in my career and what I'm establishing in my career now, these years later, is that the biggest benefit is not being enrolled in a program, SSI, that very aggressively restricts the assets that I'm allowed to carry, that I'm allowed to have financially.
Can you elaborate on that? So,
happy to.
So like when you're on SSI, what you're talking about with assets would be like the amount of money in your bank account, you know, stocks and, you know, things like that. So what you're saying is that you're limited. If you have a certain amount of assets in your name, your SSI will be revoked, which kind of basically, to use that word I used earlier, would punish you if you were on SSI and wanted to invest and have all these, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm happy to elaborate on that. So when I was on SSI, I got onto SSI in late 2010, and then we learned that I can only have if you're on SSI as an individual, you can only have $2,000 in countable assets to your name.
So that's even like your savings account.
Everything. Checking account, savings account.
So all combined. So if you had, 1,000 in your checking, 1,000 in your savings, you already hit the mark.
You can't have it. Yeah, it's so forget about having a stock portfolio. Forget about a high yield savings account. Forget about that stuff. They goes up and down.
So basically, does that mean that the government perceives that if you have over $2,000 to your name, then you're wealthy enough to where you don't need the requirement of SSI?
Maybe, I don't want to presume to get into,
because what would be I'm just trying to think about what the logic is of that, because that seems very illogical.
Why are they giving you this?
Like why, 2,000 is not that much.
It's illogical. It's illogical. It's repressive, for lack of a better word. It keeps people from legitimately getting ahead of their situation in life. Say someone goes on to SSI, and again, I don't want to speak for anybody other than myself, but say someone goes on SSI and they intend to get off of it and they want to make something of themselves financially, and they take a portion of their $700 or $600 and maybe invest it in some sort of investment account. Well, if that grows over the $2,000 limit, you're going to get either docked for a period of time, or they're just going to revoke you altogether. And it just kind of keeps you where you're at. And
it seems like
it's it's so restrictive and repressive in that, if repressive is even a good word for it, in that regard, because for people like me, I can't relate to a lot of people that I see who are on that program, because it was never ever in my intention to stay on it. It was just a tool.
Yeah.
But if if that's their long-term game, if that works for them, and I'm not judging anybody if that program works for them. If it works for them, that's beautiful. Yeah. But I don't understand how this is supposed to be, in the eyes of the federal government, a long-term viable solution to help people like us who have RP or other physical disabilities better their lives. I don't understand how it's, like I said, that it's not a viable, in my opinion, a viable long-term solution.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think, this brings up to a new thing. So technically, right, going off of is what's enough money to live off of and all that. So it seems like even with both SSI and SSDI, you would need some sort of supplemental help, whether it be having a house to live in already versus, because you're not going to be able to get your own place if you're living off of, so like Mike, for example, you have a wife, and so it's that supplemental income, so it's I guess the point I'm trying to make is, even with SSI or with SSDI giving you more money and more benefits, it's still not quite enough if you're truly on your own.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't have the asset restriction. I mean, like he does. I've never had to worry about our house. And nothing. I have lots of assets. So I mean,
you do.
Obviously, my my benefits don't get changed at all. So I mean, I couldn't imagine having that barrier that would be I would really.
It's just I just find it strange, because it's like how Eric said, it kind of keeps you where you're at. It's like, all right,
it's like we don't want you on.
We don't want you on it, but don't but don't get wealthy enough to where you get off of it.
Right. At least give me a few months where you're like, okay, well, we see Eric's he's got $2,000, he's got $10,000 now saved in his account. All right, now we should probably question him. Now, you hit 2,000. Sorry, you're done.
And I don't want to say that as soon as you hit 2,001 in assets for a period of 24 hours, bells and whistles go off, and there's
Yeah.
No, yeah. They're calling you up. Yeah. Eric, we got to talk, man. So
and I will tell you guys a quick story about that. So early on when I was on SSI from like fall 2010 until the winter of like 2017, like 2016 into 2017 is when I got my job. So it was like that 6-year period. And at one point, it might have been like a year or two in, the state or the federal government rather, who audited me, they audited me every year just from a phone call, just saying like, do you have 2,000 or more in asset, all this stuff. And I actually had bonds that had matured that were in my name in our safety deposit box that matured and of course exceeded the $2,000 limit. And they actually docked me like 10 months of SSI pay to make up.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So so again, I feel like I'm using that word a lot, but they punished you essentially for planning ahead.
Was that $4,000?
It was, probably
something
4 or 5. Yeah. Because it was early on.
Like,
it wasn't like $700 a month yet. So, yeah.
Man, that's like,
yep. But,
all right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Unless you have more to that story.
I just don't understand. It's just been my gripe with it ever since is that, again, if it works for you, it works for you. But I just don't see, because of the restrictions, it's so aggressive, like what this is trying to do to help you. Yeah. You don't have to pay for health insurance. You don't have to pay a premium. You don't have to pay for that stuff, whatever, but you're not going to be able to live on your own ever. And
well, you'd have to apply for stuff. And my sister had to apply for, the assisted, to get a house and stuff like that, and all that stuff. Like you
food
feel like
stamps, WIC,
apply for all these
WIC programs.
Yeah. My sister has to do all that. My sister's still on SSI, and she's on this long list waiting. She was waiting to get, an apartment and things like that. Like, and it takes years for you to get approved. And it's like,
for lack of a better way of putting it. I'll close off my comments for this part of this section of the interview with this. Is that this program, SSI, makes it, in my estimation, my experience, what I've seen other people go through with it, makes it really, really hard by its design, as we just laid out, for you to become someone financially and socially and economically, someone who does no longer depend on that program.
Sure.
They make it very, very difficult.
No. It's not designed to get off of. It's not designed. There's no like mine could be designed. SSDI can because since I have the actual I think it's like 10 to 12 grand or something like that. I'm allowed to make it or something like that. But at least there's that incentive for me to rejoin the force, and at the same time not necessarily get penalized like you would if just for having $2,000 of assets.
So let's say I want to also, this is just a question I think people might want to know is there a limit? Is there an unlimited amount of times you can, so Mike, can you get like a job, then go back on SSDI, then get a job, then go back on SSDI? Like, is there a limit to the back and forth?
I would imagine, since I'm the way my disability is and how you were saying earlier about how it's, until there's a cure anyway, it's life.
Yeah.
I'm assuming basically, I would just report my earnings once I start reaching that level, and I would just keep reporting my earnings, and I would probably I don't know if Evan's will get affected. I don't know if it'll just affect mine. I'm assuming in a way that it only affects mine. So maybe, or actually his probably would get adjusted too. Okay. Because so then it would probably be whatever mine got adjusted to. I'm assuming Evan would still collect half of whatever I'm still getting. So I think I wouldn't really necessarily. Ultimately, I probably would get to a point if he made like some crazy amount of money, right? That I would have a check for zero. Sooner or later, obviously. But no, but then I would imagine, okay, let's say I lose, I don't have this job anymore, then it would just go now it goes back up.
Sure, okay, because and that leads me to the next question, because it's kind of like a flipping the page a little bit. Is so Eric, now that you're in the workforce, you could get on SSDI. But Mike, or am I wrong?
Well, go ahead, and then we'll talk about it. Yeah.
And then Mike, you're on SSDI, but you could join the workforce. So I guess my question
Right.
now is, what are the pros and cons for you, Eric, staying in the workforce versus getting on SSDI? And we already kind of answered it, but Mike, what's the advantage of staying on SSDI versus going back into the workforce? Like, is it designed, to quote Eric, is it designed in a way to keep
go, like,
you,
get
or,
off of it.
what's your thoughts on, like, because now it's like
I
more
mean, like,
opportunities
there's definitely
are out there.
perks. Oh no, yeah, no, absolutely. The nice thing about SSDI is the consistency. But then again, SSI has that too. Eric knew he was getting every month was getting this much money on this.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter. And mine actually I'm assuming SSI goes up every year depending on cost of living and things like that. So that's always nice. It's almost like getting a raise without doing anything. And you're like, all right, I know next year my SSDI is going to go up.
Yeah.
And you're like, cool. But at the same time, I don't feel like when I initially went on it, when I left my job, I mean, I did that because I didn't think I was going to be able to get to work back in the field I was, originally working in. Could I have gotten a job in something else? Of course, I could still get it. I mean, those options are always still out there. I still have the vision to do. I could still do graphics and stuff like that. It's just the work environments tend to be a lot more difficult to get around, and
also
like
the
us.
salary would have to compete, and they would have to. This prospective job we're talking about would have to beat your current situation with the income you're getting,
and transportation
with SSDI
and
the health insurance you're receiving. So it's almost like So
there's factors to consider.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give it, for instance, right now I'm applying to be the athletic activities coordinator for Team with a Vision and United in Stride. I'm one of 4 people, being considered. It's a remote position, except for during the Boston Marathon, I'll actually have to be there in person. And if I get that position, now that's $22 an hour, which is awesome. It's a 20-hour position right now, but if they get a grant, it's going to become a full-time position. So I'll be doing like a 40-hour a week, regular position. And those are things, So I even when I'm talking to my wife about it, it's like, it isn't so cut and dry as everyone's just like, go out and go work. Someone might tell you, oh, if you just go get a job, No, that's not that easy. So I have to I got to sit there and think about, okay, I'm going to lose my insurance. If I make more money now, that's probably going to take Evan off of Husky. So now we probably he's got to come back on to a regular, other my insurance, or, we'll probably both go right onto my wife's insurance. So now her pay is going to be less because insurance goes up. And then it's like, how much is that insurance going to go up? Because it depends how good her insurance is, at her, where she works now. There's just a lot of factors. It's not so. I always like those people that make just like, oh well, you don't want to be on SSDI forever, do you? It's like, well, what's my reason? Give me a good reason to be not on it.
That was my point of the question. Is like, while there are, like, to use that word again, punishments for being on it, there also are rewards for being on it. And it just depends on your your personal situation.
Yeah. And if, like I said, you got 2 kids, 3 kids, you're probably going to make a pretty decent amount of money. It's like same with welfare and all that stuff. The more money, the more kids you got, and
then you hear people being like, oh, I'm going to have more kids to get more, from the government. And I know people do that. So it's like, it's not like it's fake.
That's the problem. Yeah. But if those people are the reason why I feel the way I feel being on disability.
Exactly.
Because I feel, this way, because someone might look at me and go, oh, or, even though I do have a condition, and even though I have every right to be on this program, there's that inner me that still wants to. There is a part of me that still wants to work and be out. And I miss weirdly the morning commute. I miss talking to my coworkers in the office, and there's those little things that you don't get from a remote position that I definitely I definitely miss. But now I'm not comfortable with that. My vision would not make me comfortable trying to get out and do that.
So what you're saying is you're open to opportunities, but it have to beat out the benefits you're currently receiving.
Yeah, I didn't say no to that thing. I mean, I was nominated from somebody in Team with a Vision in a meeting, and then he reached out to me, said, "Hey, we'd like to consider you for this position. Is this something you might be interested in?" And I talked to my wife, and she said, "Yeah, well, why not go for it?" And here I am on my phone making a resume. I haven't had to make a resume since 2005. It was all new to me, and it was exciting in a way because I was before that. I had another kind of interesting experience. Was my friend wanted me to be the Seymour High School track and field coach. He approached me. I remember it was like a couple years ago, just before we got this house. So I think it was like 2019. And he's like, "Dude, can you get your He's like, "How would you feel about being the Seymour High School, track coach?" And I'm like, okay, so here I was getting my CPR certification that day, trying to get everything in order so I can, and put together some type of, resume or something. I forgot what I did, how I applied for that. And those are exciting for people, when you're not in the workforce a long time and you're like, it's kind of cool, in a way, I like the fact that I'm at the YMCA and I have, even though I'm only making I make like $300 a month or something like that from them. But it's like that feeling that I'm not just working, I'm not I'm not taking the government's money, and realistically it's my money because I actually worked in the workforce and this is my money.
Well, yeah, to that point, it's like everyone gets money taken out of their paycheck to pay for, the Medicare you'll receive once you turn 65. It's just if you accept disability and go on disability SSI or SSDI, you're getting that basically starting it early, basically. Yeah.
It's like, I earned this. I went to I was in the workforce for X amount of years. And, so I should really feel bad that I'm on it.
Yeah. And I want to get into that a little bit more later about the stigmas around it and how society views it. But let's hear Eric's, let's say, Eric wanted to change up his life and he wanted to just, let's say you got laid off or something like that and you chose to go on SSDI, or, you just decided, what, my vision's making it hard for me to work, which this is a completely fake scenario. I'm not saying that you would say this, but let's say somebody was working and they just decided, hey, you know what, I'm just going to claim SSDI now. What would be the pros and cons of making that switch from working to that? And I know Mike covered his point of view, but from your point of view currently.
So for me to go back on to SSDI, I would actually have to work quite a few more years before I would qualify for it because I don't have enough quarters to qualify for SSDI.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So what's that? So you have to work to be qualified for SSDI. So Mike, you worked 10 years.
I forgot about that.
You qualified. What is the year limit?
Well, I worked more than 10 years at jobs. And he's talking about in general. I've been in the workforce since I was 16. Okay. So I put in, X amount of years.
So what is
it's quarters.
I think it's 40.
So what is the limit?
I think it's 40 quarters you need. I think. So that's 10 years.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know you get a statement. I remember I don't know. Everyone usually gets a statement.
And when you say quarters, you're meaning quarter a year. So every 4 months. So basically
3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 months. My bad. My math's terrible. Yeah. And
but I don't have enough. I mean, I don't even have half of that. I mean, really, I don't even have 5 full years of work experience yet, All
right, well, let's do a hypothetical. You're working, you hit that benchmark, your career's in a stride.
Yeah.
You're making good money. You're just slinging out candidates like you're currently doing. And then you just decide, I don't really like my job anymore. Or let's say you have a child like Mike, and you're just like, I want to avoid daycare costs, I'm just going to be a stay-at-home dad. What would be the downside of that?
The money, missing out on the money, because
it's just less money.
Yeah. That would be the biggest one. Because right now I pay for my own. I'm an independent contractor, so I'm technically self-employed, so I pay for my own health insurance.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, which is only about $270 a month, probably. It's through the marketplace. Okay. It's like a discounted sort of plan. So of course, going on disability would eliminate some of that cost, alleviate some of that cost. But really just the amount of money that I stand to make in my current role. And I also am recently licensed to sell annuities and life insurance in the state of Pennsylvania also, which I haven't yet sort of started. But just what I have going for me right now, it would be so difficult for me to be able to justify in my mind, even if I did have less vision than I do now, stopping what I'm doing to go back onto some sort of governmental program. It would be really difficult.
I think in his situation, it'd be good for like that. I think in Eric's situation, it would be like, I could see him using that as something just to tide him over. Like, he doesn't seem like someone that would want to stay. You wouldn't be staying on. I think he would do the same thing. Even if that were to happen, let's say you reached your 10 years and for whatever reason, lost your job. Let's say, like shit hits the fan, and you're just like, I need income. I could see applying for that as a, let me be on the, and then once I get my career restarted or new path started, now I could just get off. Yeah, I could just get off that, or but at least having something as it's a good. I think it's good to have a position where you need, you need income. Yeah. And if you qualify for it, it's out there. Why not use it to help you out? It's like unemployment. Like, why not? I know some people are embarrassed to be on unemployment, but why? It's if you qualify for something, then use it.
Yeah, you pay it. You pay enough.
There's nothing to be embarrassed about.
You pay enough taxes, So it's like,
yeah, we're all someone in the corporate world is robbing us blind. If I want to cheat the government out of some money, if I want to rob from the rich a little bit, like, or whatever, however someone looks at it, then that's fine. Like, if that's really what you're going to look at me and say, oh, Mike's lazy. I'm not, no, because I know I'm not lazy. Anybody who knows me is now I'm not lazy. I may procrastinate.
But that does bring me to my next point is like society has two false viewpoints, it sounds like. So like some people think that, if you're disabled, the government will just pay you, and that's an incentive to go on disability, and that, you know what I mean? Oh, the government makes it too easy for you. All you got to do is claim disability. They don't even have to work, But on the other hand, it's like if you're on disability, and then it's like that person's is lazy and just doesn't want to work. So Mike, you talked about it a little bit, but Eric, I want to know your point of view is like, how do you guys what do you guys think about like the stigmas that surround disability and when it comes to work ethic and things like that? Like,
I have a great story to share after Eric. I'll go after Eric, but I have a great story to share about what happened on Facebook one time to somebody.
Yeah, as far as, it's a good question. As far as the stigma, I mean, I really haven't had to deal too much with it personally, but of course I know I'm not blind, so to speak, to the fact that the stigmas exist. But yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it, people say things about any group of people, whether it's people in the disabled community, people of other races, ethnicities, backgrounds, things like that. They say stuff, and when they say stuff and make assumptions and form these stigmas, as we're going to call them, it's just out of not knowing enough of what that person or those groups of people are going through. And not that everybody in the sighted community, so to speak, or the able-bodied community should just know what we as low vision people are going through. But that's where I think a lot of that comes from, is just ignorance in its purest sense, meaning not that they're ignorant as we call people ignorant today, but ignorant in lacking the knowledge base in a certain area.
Yeah, I like the words paired together, innocent ignorance.
Yeah, that's a really,
sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not innocent. I'm sure Mike's story, it kind of sounds like it's not going to be very innocent, but it's not. I guess so. I guess since that you're not on SSDI, that could be a point of pride for yourself, and other people may view that as a positive of you. Eric, have you experienced that?
I do. I do experience it. I have experienced it. I've had people when I was between jobs. So I got my job as a career counselor, did that for 2.5 years. Then I left that job for a staffing job that was a full-time job, not what I have now, but a different staffing job as like a W-2 employee. And they actually fired me like 6.5 weeks in because I couldn't produce fast enough because I can't see. And, yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, really. Like, I guess I should have clarified. Yeah. I have this thing called RP, and I was really, so I didn't work in the workforce, so to speak, from like June of 2019 until May of 2021. So I was basically out of work for 2 years. Luckily, it was during COVID, so I got a lot of unemployment and some extensions and things like that. But
yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it was great. But I would have family members and some friends say, "Well, why don't you go back on?" And they would call it disability because some of them don't know the difference between, like, why don't you go back on disability or go on disability? I'm like, first of all, I wouldn't qualify for SSI ever anymore because I had saved my money like a fiend, A, when I was working, and B, when I was on unemployment for a year.
So you just wouldn't.
I would have had to. That scene in the Dark Knight when the Joker burns that pile of money. That's what I would have to do. I would have to
just go to a casino and gamble, man. Just like just go on one epic casino trip.
Yeah. But no, I mean,
I guess that would be a loophole. Is just to have a bunch of cash.
Yeah. But
that's right, Ed, because it's not.
I am not advocating that, by the way. That is not.
We're not saying you should do that, but that's an idea.
That is a loophole.
The match.
You could always work under the table too, and then you could have
that. I'm not saying I've done that, but I'm not saying I haven't done that.
But the fact, to answer your question, to get to the point of your question, Lance, has there been a sense of pride of people seeing that as like a positive attribute of mine to not go back to those programs? Yeah, it has made me feel good because like people who are fully sighted, who know me and know me well, would suggest out of the goodness of their heart and looking out for what they feel is my best interests to go back to that sort of, life. And me saying, I understand that, I hear you, I love you, but it's just not working. It won't work for me. It just won't work for me. A, because I won't qualify. B, financially for SSI. B, because I won't qualify for SSDI from a time standpoint. And C, it just isn't conducive to what I'm trying to do here. But it has been a sense of pride. I think it is something that people have looked at me fondly of for not going back, but don't give me too much credit for it, people, because it was never my intention to stay on it anyway,
No, you didn't start out that way.
And I think people, people have like it's weird, right? That most people, if you just look at it from like a people thing, like people like to work, but also depends on if you actually like your job. Most of the workforce, might not enjoy their job, so it's like,
if you're not working 80 hours, you're not impressive. It's like, I'm like, that's not life, man. That's not life.
And most people aren't passionate about their work, but it sounds like you're passionate about your work, Eric. And it's like that's factored in too, I think. And I just think that for whatever reason, society thinks that disabled people think differently. But it was just like, what would you do? What would most people do? Most people want to work. I don't know. It's just like
and it's a shared thing too with SSI and all that stuff. With me, I look the same way he looks at it. Like I take pride in the fact that I'm gonna attempt to still work or attempt to take on some position or offer something and still be like, hey, I'm gonna do that. Like even though I could really do nothing and just sit at home and collect SSDI.
Well,
there's nothing that makes me have to do this. Like
when you put it like that, it almost sounds like you're poking a little bit of fun at yourself currently. Do you feel like, do you get any pushback from people on like not feeling like a point of pride, but like, hey, you're on SSDI, you're mooching off the government. Like, have you experienced that?
My good story is this, and this is what and this was somebody I knew personally. I worked with them during COVID. Actually, I trained them. I worked out with them through Zoom.
Yeah, and
they basically came at me with like, essentially what I was doing wasn't like the working out and also how great shape I am. I'm able to do that because since I'm on disability. I apparently have all this time to work out. So of course it's easy to be in the condition I'm in because, I have all this time to work out, and they would feel more inclined to because I raise money for, certain charities like Achilles International and things like that. And they were like, they would donate to those when I'm actually, not only am I in this incredible shape, but I'm working 40 hours a week at a job like other people that they know that also are disabled. So we get compared to other people, and that's the problem. Because someone might be like, well, Mike, this person's blind and they're they're out doing this and they're doing that, but you're sitting here, you're clocked in, you're on disability. And it's like everyone's conditions and everyone's situations are completely different. So I had to explain to her, like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Because I may not make money, but I'm a stay-at-home dad, which is a way harder job than when I was working 10 years as a graphic artist. And two, I'm like, I run a podcast, I run a YouTube channel. I also teach spin class 3 days a week. I run another fitness class on Mondays. I do I take care of the household. I'm like, no, yeah, you're right. I don't do anything. I'm just sitting at home collecting a paycheck. You know,
it's like without a job, you don't provide any value or worth.
But apparently, I have to work. I have to be working 40 hours or more and be in this incredible shape. And then she'll donate money to me. That person will donate money to my charities because that's inspirational.
I think that's just bitterness.
That's what it is. Exactly.
Bitterness towards, exactly you're in shape too. It's bitterness that they have to work so many hours, probably at a job they don't like. So they're just like,
oh, hey, I know.
They're angry at the world.
I wouldn't divulge to who she is, but yeah, she even when we used to talk. Oh yeah, no. When we used to talk, and I always tell when we used to train and stuff, but she hated it, and she was a school teacher.
Yeah,
she teaches kids.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's like that's a really crazy story, Mike. That is. Yeah.
Yep. It's like, yeah, and this is someone, like I said, I was like actually relatively cool with, like, so, and we got, I said every week training with her and stuff. She paid me. That was one reason why I was like, cool, like I can make a little bit of money from home, and I could do some personal training and stuff. So it's like I don't sit here and just I tell people, like, I make more money sitting at home. Like, I mean, I'm doing more things than I ever did. Working at a job. I mean,
I'm curious that if by putting this episode out, I wonder if we'll hear anything about something, maybe. But it's
we'll
like
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Who like, it's almost like, at the end of the day, it's like, Mike, for your situation, it's just like claiming unemployment during the pandemic. It's like, it's the smart thing to do. All right. Well, I averaged it out. I did the math, and SSDI with a kid avoiding daycare and health insurance was the winning solution. I picked that. Fault me for whatever, but I'm just being smart here. Don't hate the player, hate the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The more you make, the more you take in Connecticut. Yeah. And I have someone in my spin class. That like totally agrees with my logic, and he's a lawyer. And he's like in his 60s. It's like, there's no incentive anymore to work 60 to 80 hours or, be those guys. There's no incentive. The harder you're working, they're just going to take more of that money.
Yeah.
So, people don't want to work because there's no incentive to work, and there should be incentive. There's nothing wrong with having an incentive.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. I always laugh at the people that are like, oh, I work this many hours a week, like they're bragging about it. I feel bad for them because they have no personal life. What are you going to do when you're dead? You can't spend money, all this money that you busted your ass earning, and then you die at the age of 60 because you overworked yourself. Like, what the hell is that? That's no life. So I will gladly sit at home and work and do these things I've been doing and try to make money elsewhere and connect with other people and enjoy my life I got to enjoy time with my son that nobody gets from the age of 3.5 till he started kindergarten in 2017, almost 2 years. I almost got a full 2 years that Evan got with me 24 hours a day. No parents get that. All parents nowadays both work.
Yeah, and you'll treasure that time forever. You'll be on your deathbed being like, those years were magical.
So, people nobody gets that. No kids get that. Kids his age do not get that.
I probably
we'll never get that. Doesn't exist.
I probably work including my podcast in this. I don't make money off of my podcast, but it's like I'm
still working. It's still a job,
probably, to be honest, I'm probably putting in close to 60 hours a week.
Yeah, see, it's nuts.
But
I mean, you love a lot of what you do.
Because I work full-time hours for Viacom right now, and then I do this podcast. Yeah. That's at least 10 to 12 a week, and then I also do side edits for the Flagrant 2 podcast.
Do you really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Flagrant, and, like Andrew Schultz.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man, that's awesome. Good for you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
out
he's
there.
very
Yeah.
out there. Oh yeah,
What else do you?
that's
Yeah.
a big deal.
You rock, man. It's Lance. It's the hair.
But yeah, it's just like, I'll work a full
He's down there.
day and like, then I'll do those flagrant edits at night, and then I'll do the podcast stuff on night or the weekends. And it's just like, it's a grind, but like I'm trying to, my whole point of it, probably Eric, you might agree with it, is like, you're trying to forge your own path. And my goal is to just be my own boss and not have to,
right.
that's my
man.
dream, is to be my own boss.
I don't want to work for somebody else. No, yeah, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want the RP show to do big things.
Because when you're, working for yourself, like when I do the podcast, it doesn't really feel like work, and it's like,
no.
So it's like and if it's something you're passionate about and you feel like you're getting a lot out of it and you're actually providing value for other people, it's, working 60 hours a week, it's almost just like living life. It's just like you're going to be alive.
Yeah, that's not working 60 hours. You're not like that's what you're just doing. Plus, it's like they say, you don't want to spend your time helping somebody else fulfill his dream.
Yeah.
You want to fulfill your dream.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to work for somebody else and help them make money. I want to work for me, and help myself make money and me be happy. And my
what I
family
really
be happy.
enjoy about it, because like as an independent recruitment consultant, I'm technically like, I don't own the company I don't own Ignite Recruitment. I contract with them, but I am, my own boss basically. I don't have a schedule or hours or anything. I can't even tell you how many hours a week I work. It's not a lot at all. It's because it's mainly just prospecting and coordinating interviews and emails and stuff like that. It's not like a sit down and do this for 8 hours, Yeah,
Like,
but
right.
But the thing that what I really like, and there's many things. This could be a whole episode, like blind entrepreneurs and stuff like that. But like the biggest one of the biggest perks of being self-employed, being an entrepreneur in the recruitment and annuity space is, you don't you don't always have a paycheck every 2 weeks, but you always have the opportunity to get paid. No one's ever going to take that away from you. You're not going to fire yourself because you didn't follow the screen fast enough and make this production quota for the day, or
Exactly.
whatever,
Eric fired himself.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that's, we covered a lot, and I think we covered a lot of ground, and, it's funny. I'll throw this in just because I think it makes this a little bit just like a funny little side note. But I thought this episode, when I reached out to do this, I said, it'll be a mini episode. We'll go over, and here it is out.
We'll just cover
hour
things.
15, and I almost feel like I'm having to stop the conversation. I do have one more question though. Do you have any advice for people with a disability, vision loss, on being comfortable with their decision on whatever they pick?
Do whatever works for you. Do whatever works for you in your situation. Do your research, talk to your people that are close to you, the people that know you and love you and trust you the most, your family, your friends, and do a lot of soul searching and committing to one of these programs isn't, you're not signing your soul away either. You can always get off of it. In some cases go back onto it, but just, it's important to just acknowledge that we are talking about our own experiences. And again, we are not telling people what to do or what not to do. We're just talking about ourselves. And I just encourage people to learn about themselves, know about themselves, what they want for their lives, short-term and long-term, and then make their decisions about SSI or SSDI from there.
That's great advice.
I'm going to put it like this. You do what you have to do to make ends meet. If like right now, if that, maybe the job market you're in is just not, not fruitful, and there's nothing out there, and there's an option for you if you qualify for SSDI or you need SSI or whatever benefits are out there, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to use them.
Yeah, I agree.
You can add to that, Eric, if you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything that Mike said. And we had talked offline about some of my recent views about some incentives and things to get off of, to entice people maybe that are on the fence about getting off of SSI because or SSDI too, because they don't want to lose the benefits that are associated with it. And I had a suggestion for our federal government. But
let's hear it.
So I'll tell our audience what my original suggestion was, and then I'll tell them what my modified suggestion is. So I'm not sitting here saying that this is like, I'm not gonna, be standing, in Washington saying this is what needs to happen. But
I'll be there tomorrow, guys.
For people, I think it would be really great for people who are on SSI or SSDI, if they decide to go into the workforce in whatever capacity, that they be exempt from paying federal taxes at some level. Not necessarily. Now, originally I said no federal income taxes for these people, but I realized that that's a little bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So I modified it to adjusting it to where they only have to pay at the federal level whatever like the capital gains tax would be. So instead of like the top rate being like 37 or 40%, the top rate being like 20%, because these
I think that's fair.
SSI, like I said, is just designed to keep people in it, or makes it very, very hard for people to justify getting out of it, especially if they're profoundly disabled.
Right.
And I think if our government, in the spirit of creating such an unfortunate program, could give a proper incentive for people who are profoundly disabled to get off of it, I think would be a very productive thing for our folks in Washington to consider.
Yeah. If you want me to work, if you want us to work, exactly, like, there has to be incentives. I hate people who are just like, oh, you should just want to work. It's like, it's like we all want to work. You should all want to work towards a goal or towards something. There's something should be, that you're gaining. There should always be a gain.
Yeah.
Why is it wrong to feel like, that I want an incentive?
Now, I am happy to pay I'm happy to pay the taxes that I pay. Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, I think it would make more sense to more people who are, for lack of a better word, trapped in those programs to untrap themselves if there was an added bonus to it. Yeah.
And those people could be creative people. Those people could be so talented, but they're not even able to really even think to do anything because they feel like this is their world. They're stuck in it. This is my world. This is where I gotta be. And, unfortunately that's how it is. Whereas if there was maybe something like you're saying, now they can go, well, geez, maybe I can go do, this. I always wanted to do this. And now there's that little click in their brain. And that, these people aren't lazy. You weren't lazy. I'm not lazy. We're not lazy people. It's just, we're going with what is out there.
Yeah. You gotta have, we talked about it. I use the word punishment and rewards. It's like, there has to be incentives and, it has to make sense,
When you apply for a job, what do you do? What do you ask?
Yeah. You're like, what's the salary? What are the hours? And you figure all that out.
Pay time off. Is there pay time off? Vacation? Yeah. Is there like, you want to know everything that's in there, like in there. And if you're not going to just accept the job because that's the job that's in front of you. But if there's like, oh, wow, this company's got this and that, and they have a whatever. All right, you know what? It's got some really good incentives. Like that's more likely probably what's going to convince you to, take that position, having those little extra incentives.
Just a thought.
For sure.
Just a thought. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Eric.
I like it though. I like it. Yeah.
And
I like it, Eric.
Yeah, I think this is great. I think it's at least, we'll get people thinking about it if they haven't thought about it yet. And we'll hopefully,
or maybe we just make some people mad.
Maybe make some people mad. Maybe educate some people. We'll see. That's we.
Hey, bad publicity is good publicity. So
we're just trying to speak our minds and be, ourselves in the process. Man. And it's like that's the benefit of of me running an independent podcast is like we can say whatever we want. So.
No, see, but I want to finish something off. Here's what someone would say to you, Eric, when you went to go because you use SSI as a tool to get money, to save you money in school. Somebody else would look at you and say, well, why didn't you just pay for that school yourself? Why didn't you just, they would, there's somebody out there that would actually think that. Yeah. And that's what makes people like Eric hesitate and go, he didn't hesitate, but there's people out there that would hesitate because they're going to be like,
to themselves.
Someone's going to judge me on that.
Yeah. And to those people, I say, it's people say, oh, well, it must be nice that you got your school paid for. I wish I would have had my school. Well, here's what I say to those. Here's what I say to those people, and this will be my final comment, unless we have any sort of follow up. Yeah, but I look at people, especially people who are close to me, and I say, well, would you rather be blind by 40, or would you rather have a mortgage? Would you rather have a student loan? Would you rather have a loan to pay back? I would assume the financial burden of a student loan in exchange for the rest of the sight that I have never had instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, and speaking on that, I got mine because of my disability. I got my college loans taken care of. So yeah, I don't own it. And I could brag about that too, but I'm like, I had to go blind to get that.
Would you not pay that money back tomorrow if you could get all your sight back? Yeah.
Right. Yes. So right. Yeah. We reverse the situation. Yeah. Absolutely. So, give me my student loans.
I'm with you. Yeah. That's it. So, yeah.
That's just dumb. Yeah. And people will give me shit probably. Yeah. Oh, that must be nice. You got those taken care of. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I just had to be born with this, like eye disease.
They're forgetting
Thank you.
What comes with it,
Yeah.
So notice we are paying for it. We're paying for it personally. We're paying for it for it a different way.
Yeah, the thing about disabilities, it's like the whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of argument goes out the window.
Well, we look normal. You look normal. Eric, he's wearing glasses, yes, but he still looks like a guy just who wears, anybody could be, wearing glasses like him, and you'd be like, all right, he's just like he just, we're all just normal people to anybody else.
Yeah.
So they don't see struggle.
Exactly.
They don't see that. They just see your health. They see my fitness post and they say, okay, Mike can do all these amazing things. Why isn't he out in work? Why isn't he working? Why isn't he, doing this and that?
Yeah, Mike, you lazy piece of shit, Mike.
I'm so lazy. I know. I'm just sitting on the couch watching movies all day and just playing video games. I love it.
Yeah.
Too funny. Nah, it's crazy, man. I'm definitely curious what people will respond to, like me and Eric and I's
me too.
Opinions.
I'm excited about it. Yeah, I'm excited and I can't wait.
Well, it's good.
Yeah.
I try to, start conversations with this podcast. One, I'm learning myself. Two, it's like I'm trying to provide value for people who listen. So there's a lot in this episode people will take in and be like, oh, I never knew that, never knew this, never thought of that. So, and then there might be people who disagree, but if there's a dialogue, if you have a comment about this episode or if you disagree, let us know. Like I want to leave a comment. Like let's have a conversation. Tell me why we're wrong. Tell me why we're right. So
you guys have both been on my podcast, man, and it's the same thing. I'm learning. I learned from that podcast as well, just like you learned from yours.
Exactly.
Like, and that's what's awesome about it. It's like it's not just. I know when I had both you guys on mine, it was all about just sharing your journey. But it's really my journey is not over either. So I learned just as much.
For sure.
From you guys, and I learned from you.
So I'll close this out by saying, one, go follow the RP Show. Go check out the RP Show on YouTube. I'll have a link in the show description where you can watch that. I'm a part of the season finale of season 2. So is Eric.
You might see him.
So I'll have a link in that so you can see us, have some fun in that video. And go follow Eric on Instagram and TikTok. You also have a YouTube page.
It's just my.
Can you tell everyone where to find you?
Yeah. So you could go subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Eric Bennardo, my name. And then I think Lance, you'll probably put our links in the description, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah. So YouTube, Eric Bennardo, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, that's where you
everywhere.
That's where you can.
He's everywhere.
And Mike, and if you want to follow Mike's personal page and not the RP Show, he's Michael. No, it's Tubiak Maniac.
That's my Instagram. Yep. And we also have Living Free with RP. If you want to check out the podcast,
a lot of episodes for that. And Eric and I both have an episode on his podcast, so go check that out. I'll have a link for that too. But that wraps this episode. Thanks again for coming on. We covered a lot, and we'll see how it goes.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks for having me.